welcome to Rossum Healthy. I'm Julia and I'm with Don Bennett, health educator and health coach, who's going to talk about B12. Don, firstly welcome, thank you very much for coming to share this information with us. Can we start by defining B12?
B12 is often called vitamin B12, which is a misnomer. It's not really a vitamin, but I guess they didn't want to create a whole new category for it, so they just call it vitamin B12. B12 is something that's made by microorganisms in your body. That's where it normally is supposed to come from. It's a byproduct of bacterial action inside your body. And it's a nutrient that your body requires for many things. It doesn't require a lot of it. It would fit on a couple of heads of pins throughout the whole year is the amount that you would probably need, but it's very vital. If you don't get enough of it, you can have neurological damage, or you can feel tired, fatigued. There's a lot of things that can happen if you don't have enough of it. So normally it's supposed to be made in your body, but there's a lot of things that we can do to prevent that from being made. If you are consuming soda, coffee, tea, alcoholic beverages, antibiotic drugs, garlic, ginger, spicy things, all these things interfere with the body making B12. So when we started doing these things in our society, we started to become B12 insufficient. And that's when they discovered B12 and figured out what was going on. So they said, all right, the only way to keep people from getting B12 deficiencies is to put B12 into the foods that everyone's eating, to fortify the foods. Now also with B12. So for instance, cereal is fortified with B12. They spray B12 right on the cereal as it's going in the box. And they seal up the box and ship it to the store. So that's how most people are getting their B12, because they're certainly not making it themselves because they're drinking alcoholic beverages or coffee or tea or soda, all the things that I named. So what happens when you try to eat a healthy diet? Because the fortified foods are processed foods. They're not really healthy for you. But that's how you're getting a lot of the nutrients that are not in the foods that you're eating, because they just put them in there. They fortify them. So when you move away from a fortified food diet to a natural food diet, now how are you going to get things that are normally not part of the diet, like B12 and vitamin D?
So we're talking about, can I just clarify that we're talking about raw vegan diet?
A raw vegan diet, yeah, well you're just eating nothing but fruits and vegetables. You're not cooking anything, you're not eating any processed food that's been fortified with D and B12 and all these things. And since D and B12 don't normally come from food, now where are you going to get it from? So if you can get to a point where you're healthy enough for your body to start making B12 again, that's great. But there's a period of time where some people might not be. And if it's long enough, they can bump up against the B12 deficiency. So rather than guess whether you have it or you don't, or say, I don't think I do, or I don't want to take any pills, it's better to be safe than sorry. Go get tested. There's an excellent test for your B12 status. It's not a B12 blood test, which most people would think, yeah, give me a B12 blood test and that'll show me where I am. But there can be false okays with the B12 blood test. That's where they test how much B12 happens to be in your blood. But that's not telling them if your body is utilizing that B12 or not, because there's something else that your body requires to utilize the B12 that it's either making or you're taking, as a supplement or coming in your processed foods. And that's called the intrinsic factor. If your body isn't making enough of that for one reason or another, now you're not going to be utilizing B12. So the best test is not how much B12 is in your bloodstream, but how your body is or isn't utilizing B12, and that's called an MMA test. MMA stands for methylmalonic acid. And there's two types, a urine test and a blood test. The urine test is better. So it's a small letter U, capital M, capital M, capital A. That's the test you want to, that's the gold standard for seeing what your B12 status is, how you're doing.
Is it something that people can do in a normal lab?
Well, sure. I mean, here in the United States, you can get a test kit mailed to you, and you basically get urine into the thing and you mail it back to the lab, they test it, and you get your results. Then you learn what the range is supposed to be and you see what your range is, and that way you know. And if you're deficient, you should do something about it. First of all, depending on how deficient you are, if you're dangerously deficient, you should start supplementing with something. I recommend B12 that goes under the tongue, or the methylcobalamin form of B12. Not the cyanocobalamin form, methylcobalamin. Methylcobalamin. And the best way is under the tongue, not swallowed, because some people have trouble getting B12 from the swallowed B12 tablets. So under the tongue and you'll be good to go. Until you can figure out why your body wasn't processing B12 or making B12.
What do you think about B12 injections?
It's another way of getting B12 into your body, but if you're going to give me a choice between piercing the skin and doing damage and setting off alarm bells in the body, because that's what happens. If you stick any kind of needle through your skin, your body doesn't know why you're doing it. All it knows is danger, danger, I've just been pierced. And surgeons will tell you if you can avoid a needle or a knife your whole life, do it. Avoid the needle and the knife as much as you possibly can. So since I can get B12 under the tongue, I much prefer that rather than piercing the skin. An important thing I want to add on to the B12 issue is some people will say, well, yeah, it's possible, but you know what? Before you start testing and taking supplements and considering all that, just wait till you manifest some symptoms of a B12 deficiency, and then you test, and then take supplements if you need to, or try and correct it otherwise. I'm not an advocate of that, because by the time you're experiencing noticeable signs of B12 deficiency, that's not when the deficiency started, one day before that. It's been going on for quite a while, and it could be affecting a lot of other things. It could be affecting your immune system function. So that's why I'm a big advocate of just testing, just to make absolutely sure, because again, when you move away from fortified foods, you're not getting that B12 anymore. And it's not, now some people say it's on food. If you don't wash the food, it's on food. Yeah, there is some B12 on food, but that's not how we're supposed to normally get it. So people say just don't wash your food, you'll be okay. There's so little on there that even if you don't wash your food, and again, you're taking it orally, and some people don't do well with orally consumed B12 because it's just supposed to be made inside there normally. That's why I recommend the sublingual B12. So, and unlike other nutrients where if you get deficient and it causes problems, you can resolve those problems and there's no damage done. With B12, it's possible if there's damage done, if you get B12 symptoms like maybe shakes or something, and you can do irreversible damage. Okay, that's one thing about B12 differs from all the other nutrients. If you become B12 deficient enough where there's some damage caused like shaking, you could then correct the B12 deficiency and be okay, but maybe the shaking never goes away because some things can be very hard to deal with, for the body to deal with, and in a sense irreversible. So you don't want to play around with a B12 deficiency. That's why I advocate testing and then doing something about it, even supplementing while you're trying to figure out what went wrong in the first place.
Okay. Once again, thank you very much, Don.
You're very welcome.
We wish you all the best.
Okay, thanks
you.
guys.
Bye-bye.